the Catholic Church has gone from being a gathering of believers to being the sovereign power of states and back to being a gathering of believers. Only this time, we're a very influential gathering of believers. However, in recent times, the church has not had enough power in matters of the state because of some factors, both good and bad. But recently, the Catholic faithful are calling for the church to get involved again in politics. Our guest today is Rev Fr Raymond Anoliefo, and we'll be talking about the issue of the church and politics. When we come back from this short break, we'll be going straight into the discussion. My name is Chima, and welcome to Catholic Faith Forum. Welcome back to Catholic Faith Forum. Our guest today is Rev Fr Raymond Anoliefo. He is the director of the Justice Development and Peace Center in Lagos, also the chaplain of Catholic Action Nigeria, and also the spiritual director of the National Association of Catholic Lawyers. Omo Father, you're a big man, no?
No.
So tell us how it has been juggling all of these responsibilities and also being a Catholic priest who has to, give us communion.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. And thank you for bringing me here. And I'm delighted to be here. Well, as the director of Justice Development and Peace and then the chaplain of Catholic Action Nigeria, they seem to intertwine the two activities, since they have to deal with issues of human interaction with the church and, of course, more importantly, with the society. And that's where politics is played. So at least at that level, there's some synergy. And then, of course, with the Catholic lawyers, we know full well it's just about bringing our faith to bear in our profession. So as lawyers, and then you're a Catholic as well, there has to be some form of difference between the everyday lawyer and the lawyer who is a Catholic. So here, faith and profession have to marry somehow.
Interesting. All right, so JDPC we know, but not everybody knows about Catholic Action Group. So tell us, what exactly is the Catholic Action Group?
Okay, well, the Catholic Action Nigeria was just recently inaugurated in the Archdiocese of Lagos. And it's fairly new in Nigeria. I think it's about 3 years old in Nigeria. But it's been long in the church. Precisely, if I'm not mistaken, about 1927. It was earlier than that, but in 1927, Pope Pius XI gave it some form of definition. And I don't want to call it a definition, but that's what it looks like. He refers to it as a participation of the laity in the apostolate of the hierarchy.
Wow.
So it was in 1927 that Pope Pius XI gave that definition for Catholic Action. And it's all around the world, in America, in Mexico, especially in Latin American churches, where you have St. Oscar Romero and things in that direction. So the involvement of the laity in the apostolate of the hierarchy, knowing full well that the hierarchy of the church borders itself a great deal on faith and morals. Now, the laity have to be the ones to have that kind of rapport with the society, but in line with the Catholic social teachings. So you see where the laity play a role, and then they come in together. So basically, but in Lagos, we were inaugurated precisely on the 13th of December, 2020, at the Holy Cross Cathedral, by His Grace, the Most Reverend Alfred Adewale Martins. And since then, we've just started gradually trying to gather people together, trying to drive home the core mission of the Catholic Action. It's just one of the ways by which the Catholic Church, like you said at the introductory part, where the Catholic Church trying to up its stake in the affairs of man. This time, more than ever before, I'm sure the Nigerian political space needs our intervention and our input.
Serious rosary. We need to soak rosary inside water.
Sure. And I'm sure that's what the Catholic Action is set to do and to achieve.
Awesome. So there's no need repeating the statement that as Catholics, we owe our duty to state. I mean, we are taught this in our catechism. We get this from homilies almost every Sunday. But let's go straight into the matter. As it is hot now, Father, should the church be involved in politics, especially with the fact that we see it as a dirty game?
Well, now, when you say the church, I want to presume something.
Mm.
I want to presume that you are referring to the hierarchy.
Yes.
But let us look at the church, because everything I have to be talking about, when I mean the church, I'm not looking at the hierarchy alone. I'm looking at everyone.
Everyone.
The hierarchy, the clergy, and of course, the laity as well. So I think the answer obviously is yes. The church ought to be involved in politics. First of all, from the simple definition of politics, it has its Greek etymology, polis, which means city. And the church is in the city. The church is in the state. So the church is not alien to it.
Yeah.
And because the church is there, the politics of every nation also affects what you eat. It affects even how you worship.
Yes.
So the church must be interested in what interests it. So the church, the answer is yes. And then if we say politics is a dirty game, I think it's people who say politics is a dirty game is meant to scare good people so that you don't come into it, and they tell you it's a dirty game, so you stay out of it. But even if we accept that it's a dirty game,
you can go in and make it clean.
Let's go flush it and use hypo and make it clean.
Awesome. All right, so does the church show, as it stands now, does the church actually come out to show support for lay members who decide to say, okay, I'm running for office? Does the church do anything of that sort at this moment?
Okay, the answer I'll provide is in two ways. First, no, and then the second one is yes. No, in the sense that in the recent past, we have not seen the church come out and endorse a particular candidate, either for religious purposes or maybe because it's Catholic and things in that direction. And the reason is obvious. The hierarchy of the church cannot be seen playing partisan politics. And so that is a no. But on the flip side, yes. Yes, in the sense that the church encourages her members to get involved in partisan politics. Get involved in partisan politics and then bring the faith to bear on the politics of the day. To get registered as members of political parties, become card-carrying members. So to that extent, yes, the church encourages and so supports her members to go in that direction. But to probably come out and say, yes, this is our candidate, this is our guy, vote for him. No, no. But in between, I think there's a gray line that the church had been towing. I think we will need to heighten it a little more. Permit me to take you back to 2018, precisely in April 2018. The Catholic Bishops' Conference gave a statement calling the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari, to resign. And in no mean words, in no simple terms. And they did say, if you cannot guarantee the security of lives and property, do well to step aside. Now, while the church will not endorse a candidate as this is our candidate, the church can call out erring leaders, can call out administrations that are just as they've been doing, that have not been pulling their weight, and just as they did in the recent past, as early as last week, warning this administration headed by Muhammadu Buhari once again that the country is at the precipice of war. And it's only important that the church continues to do that and to heighten it. But somehow, it seems, will I say it's our laity? I probably have not been bold enough to take the gauntlet and to move.
Wow.
There's an extent to which the hierarchy of the church will push this.
Then the rest,
and then the rest, yes, the foot soldiers, just like our good friend Father Oloma said, when Jesus was to raise Lazarus from the dead, Jesus simply was the one who prayed, and he said to them, go and roll away the stone. It wasn't Jesus who had to roll away the stone. So people had, division of labor.
Yeah.
And so when the church's hierarchy will take the prayers, will set the direction, will give the impetus, it is for the laity to take up these positions and run with it and help flush out the bad eggs we have in the system, and of course enthrone the good guys.
Awesome. All right, so say a Catholic manages to get into office by people voting for them or, appointments. In what ways can that person's Catholic faith help him, inculcate good principles that, can translate into laws for the country?
Well, I think that brings us to catechesis. It's nemo dat quod non habet. You can't give what you don't have. So we have to take it back to elementary catechetical instructions, right from when we're baptized, communicants, confirmed, to the extent to which these persons inculcated these virtues and values in themselves. When they become political leaders, all too often, it's a bit difficult. And I'm sure, hopefully, within the course of our discussion, I'll probably point out some of those areas where it's a bit difficult for them if they have not originally imbibed it. Because here you talk about somebody who gets into politics, he has to align with the goal or the vision
of his
party. Just like what we're having in the United States of America with our Catholic brother, Biden, with the Democrats. They have what they stand for. And so, as a Catholic, where do you draw the divide? How do you move? So, in our own case here, we need to strengthen catechetical instruction. We need to also let people know, our children as they grow up, and young people, letting them know that, first of all, politics is not a dirty game. Secondly, let them know that they have a stake in this. And this time, it is more of a moral obligation. It's a moral obligation. The burden has to be put on them, and you must get involved. You must get involved. There's no sitting on the fence anymore. You must get involved. It determines what you eat. It determines what you wear.
It determines the school. Runs your life.
To an extent, it might even determine the air you breathe, the quality of the air you breathe. So you need to be involved. But we need to start from young,
from the
and
basis.
Then begin to encourage them so that when they now become adults and play into politics, just like the Catholic lawyers, you're a lawyer, quite all right, but you're a Catholic
at the same
and we
time.
have our patron as St. Thomas More, who's a Catholic, and then you have the outstanding Dominican priest, who is also my patron saint, St. Raymond of Peñafort. He's a Spanish priest, but he's also a lawyer. And who says you cannot be a lawyer and still be a saint and bring the Catholic teachings
into
bear
the faith
on your profession and then carry it along? But sometimes what you hear is that all lawyers are
liars.
I didn't say that. So you said it yourself.
All right. Thank you, Father. I'm enjoying this conversation, but we're going to take a short break. And when we come back, we'll be looking at some opinions, very interesting opinions that we took from our social media. Stay with us. Welcome back. I have Father Raymond Anoliefo with me in the studio, and we've been having a very interesting discussion on the church's involvement in politics. We took some opinions from social media, and a lot of them were very interesting, but we're going to look at a few on this episode of the show. So Sick on Twitter said, they, meaning the church, can always do more, encourage folks to vote the right people, and not for their stomachs. They can also encourage folks to register and make sure the wrong people are not given audience or recognition at church events. Father, you see this particular opinion, a lot of Catholics hold it because they feel, and it has happened, some of us have seen, where some shady politicians have been given high tables at church events. So what do you think of this opinion?
Well, it's a very difficult terrain. Why I say it's difficult is because all too often there is the court of public opinion that is out there that probably casts aspersion on these people. So when you say people of questionable character, which court has tried them?
True.
So sometimes it's neither here nor there. And then once I was having a conversation with a brother priest, and he did say, even Jesus gave the Eucharist to Judas Iscariot. So, how do you kick them out of the church? Do you kick them out of the entire setting because
they are shady?
They appear shady, or they've been involved in politics and there have been accusations and counter accusations. If they have been convicted, it's a completely different kettle of fish. But if they have not been convicted, it might be a bit too much to say, okay, we are going to kick you out because we think you have embezzled public fund, because it is out there on social media
that you bought
several vehicles, you were this, you were that. It's neither here nor there. Matthew, the tax collector, Jesus called him Zacchaeus. Jesus came into his life and he changed.
Enjoyed himself in his house.
Possibly, but then he changed.
Yes.
And there was restitution. So in this light, you do not know if you're bringing them in church and they listen to you and they hear what you have to say, might just be that seed that may begin to, in their journey of repentance. Because what the church is about, the church is not about condemnation. The church is not about excluding people from the house. And that's why even the word Catholic is universal. So the balance has to be struck. Quite all right, that is on the one side. But then, if there are, in order to be safe, like St. Paul says, if my eating meat will lead my brother or my sister to sin, then I better not eat that meat. So if you know there is a character and you are not particularly comfortable or particularly sure of where the person stands, we all know them. So there probably will be no need calling names. It will be safer
to just have them
for you to have them not occupy those places of position or become the voices in the church, so as not to probably give a bad example, such that if they have been involved in some form of public scandal, you do not want to tie them so much and bring them out as figures. You're not kicking them out. You are hoping and urging that they have a change of mind.
Yeah.
And equally calling our people, the Christian community, also to be kind and charitable
towards these people.
Some of these, in quotes, questionable persons. When was the last time you prayed for them?
True. That's a very valid one. All right, so Kingsley Novich said or tweeted, the church can be a place to register for your voter's card. It can be a polling center too during elections. This can help reduce violence and rigging during elections. Do you think the church should open its doors to these things as this young man has suggested?
Well, not exactly, because it might paint a different color. We know we are in a polarized country. There is a whole lot, and under the guise of religion, so many things can happen. So if you allow the Catholic churches, for example, in Lagos, to become
polling centers,
are you going to allow the mosques? Are you going to allow other churches? And at the end of the day, so the best thing is, the church had always been doing it. We can heighten it. Encourage members to go and register. Let them know where these polling centers are. Help them to make sure that these polling centers are open at the right time, or the registration centers when it's time to go and register. Let them go to those places. Let them register. Help them to drum up support for them and increase government's attention to the fact that either the voters' cards have not been returned, or the registrations have not been done effectively, or when people get there, there are no personnel on ground. Those are some of the things the church needs to do. The church doesn't need to own it. No. But the church can turn her searchlight on those areas, and which I think the church has been doing. Is all that we just need to keep on improving, and of course, keep on letting our members know that this is something they must do as a matter of moral obligation.
Interesting. All right. Thank you so much for your insights on those comments from our Twitter followers. When we come back from the short break, we'll be talking about how the church can actively participate more. And when we say the church, we don't just mean the hierarchy. We mean you and I. Stay with us. Welcome back. I still have Fr Raymond Anoliefo with me discussing the issue of the church's involvement in politics. Now we'll be looking at how the church can actively participate more in politics. Firstly, Father, can you help us to clearly define what the church's role in political life is at the moment?
Probably I'll first start by maybe changing that word role from role to maybe mission.
Mission.
Yes. I would say the church's mission in our world. Like we did say, okay, it's a pretty broad question. So we'll narrow it down to probably Africa or straight down to Nigeria. To Nigeria. Currently, it is comme ci, comme ça. It's neither here nor there. we are doing our fair bit, but I think the space is enormous. We need to be a lot more involved. Currently, there are so many things calling out for intervention. Kidnapping, the insecurity in the country, from food insecurity to all forms that we have it in the country, the consistent inept leadership that we've had, and the consistent call of the church urging members to vote their conscience. Now, this is where I'll be a bit more critical as per what we want, or what the church, by way of the laity as well, and the hierarchy of the church, to be doing at this time. When we say vote your conscience, or vote for conscience, or vote conscience, or however I want to call it, that conscience, the question is the conscience formed? Is the conscience informed? Or is the conscience deformed?
Formed, informed, deformed.
Very important. Now, where the church comes in strongly from the grassroots is by trying her best to continue to form the consciences of her people. Why do we want government to feed people and remove poverty? For so long, there has been the race against time, elimination of poverty, elimination. Why poverty in the first place? Why poverty in the first place? Somehow they look at many of us church leaders as the middle class. As the middle class. So they say, you guys don't even know what you're talking about. You tell us not to collect 5,000, but you are air-conditioned rectory. You have your car. You are not looking for job. So you see where the church needs to now come in to be a lot more actively engaged. Sometimes when we wait to come to the final point, the polling stations where you want to vote your conscience, don't collect 10 naira, don't collect 5,000 naira. Sometimes it's a little bit too late. Because these guys are poor, these guys are hungry, over 100 million people living in below poverty, less than $2 per day. And there's somebody to give them 5,000, 10,000 naira, a bag of rice.
What's stopping them from taking?
Yeah, they take it, and it's not even they take it and go and vote. They take it and they are not bothered about voting. They're not bothered about, but these guys will have to write the results themselves. So, but now the church, laity and the hierarchy can go down to the grassroots and begin to form their consciences from that point. Begin to create programs to help people to be empowered. We can't wait for government anymore. We must deal with poverty where it is. We must deal with unemployment where it is. We must teach people leadership. We must become quality leaders ourselves. So at that point, it becomes easier. We take it gradual by gradual. It's like building blocks of life. We take it gradual by gradual until we get to that point where we can now, their consciences are formed. So when it's time for election, you say to them, don't vote corrupt leaders. Don't do this, don't do that. They already have something. They have the formation, they have the ability, they have the wherewithal, they have the capacity to change or to direct their lives. But if we cannot do that at that stage, it just might be a little, it might be a very, very long race. You can look at what's happening in America. It's easy for a lot of them to take away one administration and bring in another one. Because a good number, in Nigeria, there's an absence of a middle class. But over there, the middle class seem to be more powerful. They are there. Here, you just have two classes.
The
very rich
and the poor.
And the extremely poor. And the extremely poor, we are led by the nose. It is whatever, we don't have a say. Let us just let them do what they want to do. And then the middle class, they are quite inconsequential. So we can't even influence anything. We can't change anything. We can't affect anything. So in the churches, what are we doing? There's a pandemic that came and still there with us. How did we empower our members? From feeding, from job creation, from all, for example, what you guys are already doing here. These are ways to empower people, and people can have a stake and have a voice. Do we give them a voice? Do they believe in us? Are we examples? Even when Jesus went to Zacchaeus' house, Jesus did not become Zacchaeus. Even when Jesus dined with politicians or with prostitutes and things, he didn't join them, he brought them out. So in this case, in this wise, when the church parleys with all these people, do they get soaked in, or do we draw them out? Now, those are some of the ways the church will continue. And then on the final note, the church must continue to be the voice of the voiceless. A very good example. 2018, the church said, you can't secure lives and property, resign. Since then till now, we have to be on the same tempo. In December, the Christmas message given by His Lordship, Bishop Kuka,
very, very, very viral,
created upheavals everywhere. There is need for more of this, drawing these people's attention to this. And that is the bit. That is where I think I will doff my hat for the hierarchy of the church. And this is where the laity need to pick up from there and run, because the church's hierarchy can do, that really is the much they can do. They can become card-carrying members. Yeah. So it's left for the laity to now take up from what the bishop has said. His Grace, Alfred Martins, consistently is issuing out releases every now and again. Last year, October, there was the NSAS. He was out there. In fact, before the military came and did what
he celebrated
they did,
mass.
Apart from the mass, he released a document that said, dialogue with these young people and don't use force. And 2 days later, look at the mayhem that happened. So the church consistently will do this. But I think we can also help the hierarchy especially. I won't say we are incapacitated, but I think there's an extent to which we can go. And then we have, the path has been paved to a large extent. Let the lay people take up. And that's what JDPC is doing. That's what Catholic Action is about. Is a congregational assembly of lay organizations or lay persons who will need to champion this.
Wow. Thank you so much, Father, for a very, very interesting discussion. Honestly, I wish we had a lot more time, but unfortunately, we don't. It's been a long time coming, actually, this discussion, especially as the campaign machinations are going towards 2023 in Nigeria. So please, let's register with political parties. Let us campaign and vote. After you've prayed for a good candidate, after you've sought the direction of the Holy Spirit, and do sensitization work in your community as a lay person when you can. Let us move over to Collins for today's episode of Know Your Faith. Stay with us.
Okay, thank you very, very much, Chima. Hi guys, welcome to another interesting episode of Know Your Faith series. As you already know, I am Collins, and today we will be picking up from where we left off at the last episode, where we're talking about grace. We talked about sanctifying grace, the meaning, what it actually means for us to continue to walk with the grace of God. So today we'll be focusing on actual grace and ways in which we can actually access the grace of God. So according to the Catechism of the Catholic Church, it teaches us that actual grace refers to a special help that God may give for a moment or a certain act. It says that actual grace is gratia gratis data, which means grace given freely. Now, unlike sanctifying grace, it is instantaneous, meaning that it doesn't stay with you forever. It's a grace given to you for a particular purpose. A typical example would be an enlightenment you receive during prayer. The only reason why you're able to get those revelations, is because of this actual grace of God. It's something that is temporal and given to you at the moment. It is responsible for so many acts that you see, the act of miracle, healing, even the priest's ability to absolve sins during confessions is as a result of actual grace. So all these things that we see is simply because of the grace of God. Because no man really has the power to, heal anybody who is sick or raise people up from the dead or things like that. These are all graces given to us by God, and it's the form of actual grace. Like I said at the previous episode, sanctifying grace is given to us upon the sacrament of baptism, but we also receive actual grace upon that when we receive that sacrament. And like I said previously, receiving these graces are not just enough for you to attain salvation. It is very key, yes, but it's important that you back them up with faith and works. Now, God requires us to have both of these graces, sanctifying grace and actual grace. But then again, if we know all this, we know the meaning of what grace is, the types of grace, what is the point if we don't know how to access the grace of God? It will mean nothing if all we know is just definition and all these things, but we don't actually try to stretch our hand to receive this grace of God. So it's important that we know that grace is the basis for a lot of things for us as Christians, like I said in the previous episode. St. Paul, in his letter to the Corinthians, in 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 10, says, "By the grace of God, I am who I am," meaning simply that our identity is simply because of the grace of God. There's a popular song, I know who God says I am, what he says I am. And this is just showing us that it is simply because of the grace of God that we identify as Christians. St. Paul also, in another letter to the Romans, in Romans chapter 5, verse 12, says, "This grace is what we stand on." He's referring to the fact that we can actually stand to, communicate with God, like I said in the previous episode. This is the grace that makes us as sinners to come before God, to still have that, genuine conversation with him. So it's important that we know the meaning of grace and its effect on us as Christians, but it's also important for us to know how we can access this grace. So before we go today, I'm going to leave you with two truths. The first is for you to know that it's important to realize that your largest battle is within you. But if you go ahead thinking that your biggest battle, or the things you face the most, are outside, thinking about your relationship between one person, or thinking about how you're going to pass an exam, it's going to reduce your need for the grace. You're going to feel like it's not something that God can do. But once you realize that it's your greatest battle is always going to be within you, and you realize that you always need the help of God, the help of the Holy Spirit, and you need that grace of God to try to fight that inner battle. We live in a world of sin. So it's very, very important that you try to, have that conscious, battle within yourself, and always admit that you need the grace. Number two is to stand under the common fountains of grace. And I've said this a lot in our previous episodes. You need to go for, attend Mass regularly, receive the Holy Eucharist, go for confessions, join a pious society, try to make something out of your Christian life. I'm not just saying out of your day-to-day life, but try to make something out of your Christian life, because it's only when you stand under this fountain of graces that you will be able to receive grace. So remember, as grace is stated, grace is given freely, it is not deserved, and cannot be earned. You can only back it up through faith and works. So that's it for today's episode. Our question for today is, you can please let us know if in recent times or whenever you've felt the grace of God in your life and how it affected you. So please let us know in the comment sections. Thank you very much for joining us today, and over to you, Chima.
Thank you so much for staying with us, and thank you for listening to Colin's episode of Know Your Faith. If you did not catch any part of this episode, you can always catch it on our YouTube channel, Dominican Media Presents. You can also watch the full episode and past episodes of the show. The conversation continues on our Twitter handle at CFF-on-TV using the hashtag CFF-chatroom on Tuesday by 7 p.m. And our question for the week is, how much of an influence do you think the Nigerian church should have on 2023? Let us know your answers, and make sure you add the hashtag CFF-chatroom so that we can see your answers as they come in. Until we come your way with another beautiful episode of Catholic Faith Forum, keep being saints in jeans and shirts.